pasuk in Tehillim, the verse in Tehillim, where Dovid HaMelech, King David says, "Va'anochi tolas v'lo ish," I am a worm and not a man. Now, everybody knows that to be referred to as a worm is generally uncomplimentary. There are certain animals which are complimentary. Called a lion, it means you're pretty courageous, or perhaps to be called a llama, which means you're pretty chilled out. But to be called a worm is generally regarded as somewhat insulting. Yet Dovid HaMelech says, "V'anochi tolas v'lo ish," I am a worm and not a man. On this pasuk, the Medrash says that the Jewish people are compared to a worm. Ma tola zu, just as a worm, ein kocha ela befiv, the strength of a worm is only in its mouth, it doesn't have hands. So too the Jewish people, the koch of the Jewish people, the strength of the Jewish people is in their mouths. And what that refers to, obviously, is the idea of tefillah, the idea of prayer. The Jewish people, the strongest weapon we have is the potency of our prayers, of our supplications to Hashem. A worm, you ever see it take an oak tree that rots? And if an oak tree rots, the rotting of the oak tree is a result of hundreds of worms that are eating away at the roots of this tree. Now, any one of those given worms, if you would check to see that worm, when he takes a bite out of the oak tree, you wouldn't notice anything is missing. A worm has a very soft mouth. The oak tree is very hard. When the worm takes a bite out of the oak tree, you wouldn't notice anything is missing, yet there must be some micro particle that is missing, because eventually the tree rots and the tree will collapse. What the Medrash is telling us about tefillah is that every time we daven, we may not see the results of our tefillah. The results may come immediately, they may come after 30 years. But that every time we daven, every tefillah, there is a tangible result, a tangible effect that's taking place as a result of that tefillah. When we come to Chanukah, you have a menorah. And the menorah, remarkably, is made of three components. You have the oil, you have the wick, and you have the flame. Now, oil always represents the Jewish people. The Talmud says the Jewish people are compared to olives because the finest part of the olive only results through pulverization. And often the finest part of the Jewish people, the strength of the Jewish people, comes as a result of being put under pressure and unfortunately going through difficulties, various tribulations and pulverization. And then the glow, the greatness of the Jewish people, the dedication and devotion of the Jewish people comes out. So the oil represents the Jewish people. A flame, every time we see a flame in the Torah, a flame always represents the presence of Hashem, the divine presence. At Har Sinai, Hashem appears in a flame. Moshe Rabbeinu at the burning bush, Hashem appears in a flame. So the flame represents the Shekhinah, the divine presence. You have the Jewish people are the oil. The flame is the divine presence. What's the connector? The connector is a wick. A wick in Hebrew is called a ptilah. And if you rearrange the letters of ptilah, you get the word tefillah, which is prayer. That means that the oil, the connection between the Jewish people and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the flame, is prayer, tefillah. And remarkably, it's the oil climbing the wick to reach the flame, which represents how a Jew, through tefillah, we get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the connection becomes stronger as a result of our tefillah. On Chanukah, obviously, the menorah is the feature attraction on Chanukah. And when we have that menorah on Chanukah, that menorah is a flame. And that represents the lighting up of the individual Jew. There's something called hislahavus. Hislahavus, for lack of a better translation, it's not a precise translation, we'll call it fervent, enthusiastic devotion. There was a rabbi who went to France. He walked into a shul in France, and he saw a Jew davening. And this Jew was davening, and he was moving around. I mean, he was really going at it. Sometimes you see people davening, and their davening involves a tremendous amount of physical exertion. And this Jew was all over the place. And the rabbi was watching him. He was enchanted. He was mesmerized. Couldn't get his eyes off this Jew. After the davening, he walked over to the Jew. He said, "Hi," he introduced himself. He said, "Pardon me for asking. I'm just wondering, I couldn't help but watch you daven. I'm wondering why I noticed that there was a lot of movement, motion, and energy, physical energy in your davening. I'm just wondering why that is." So the Jew smiled at the rabbi. He said, "I'll explain to you. When I was a little boy, my mother called me into the kitchen. She filled up a jug of water all the way to the top, and she put it on the kitchen table. And she shook the kitchen table, and some of the water spilled over. And my mother said to me, 'Chaim, This jug represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This jug represents Hashem. The pasuk says, Kel Molei Rachim. Hashem is full of mercy. Our job is to figure out a way to shake the jug a little bit so some of that mercy comes spilling over on us. Man said to the rabbi, listen, I'm very simple. I'm an unsophisticated person. I don't understand all the meanings of the tefillahs. I don't understand the depth of the tefillah. But one thing I figured, maybe if I move around a lot, I'll be able to cause some of that rachamim to spill over on us. Chanukah is the time where we recharge our batteries and the enthusiasm, the energy for tefillah, which is something we do every day, and it's a difficult thing to maintain that enthusiasm. One of the ideas of Chanukah is rekindling that enthusiasm and being able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with that fervent devotion that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He should accept our tefillahs, we should come closer to Him, and that He's a Kel Molei Rachamim, and that rachamim should spill over on us very, very soon.